Morning all, I hope you're well. Today's tea is a fab one, it's one of my favourite. It's an oolong called Superior Iron Goddess. Great second batch of hot drinks after my morning coffee. Right, so today we're just going to talk about the 5 elements. I talked about the tiers and the community in the last video, but we're going to discuss the ins and outs of the actual elements involved in the top tier program. And it's just going to be a brief synopsis really today. Movement, energy cultivation, mindset, nutrition, and strength training. There was a need in this when I was creating this to separate out, just rather than having an exercise element, to differentiate between movement and strength training. And of course, as typically in the fashion of the fitness industry, we move around of just, cherry picking one thing. At the moment, at last, strength training's in the sort of the crosshairs, which I think is a good thing for everyone. When I started training in the 90s, all gyms were just covered in cardio machines, cross trainers and bikes and treadmills. And the weight section of most big box gyms was relegated to upstairs or a small little corner of the room. Obviously you had the machines, but the dumbbells and the free weight sections, etc. Very small. There weren't massive amounts of power racks everywhere, etc. Now though, if you go into these gyms, you find that it's completely reversed. The main floor now is weights and squat racks and all of the strength kit and places to sled push, and it's the tiny small section now where you've got the cross trainers and treadmills, etc. So it's done a complete reversal. That doesn't mean to say that cardio and movement work is devoid. And so that's why we separated them out. Movement, your movement profile, it's not just your endurance and what people call cardio, it's also your flexibility, your joint movements, and so we're looking at all of that. With the strength element, there will be like a Venn diagram, some crossover, and you'll hear me preach a lot about stretching and actually the need for it and how relevant that is for most people, because for a lot of people, muscle imbalances will be corrected very quickly when you strengthen up a weakness and an imbalance in the body. And to be fair, you waste a lot of time stretching for not much results, but I can dive in more on that. So we've got movement. So what is that? That is your steps. That's how you move around. That is, we're looking at neat stuff outside of kind of main exercise and strength training, what you're doing. And a lot of that will also come down to corrective exercise, upgrading other certain areas in the body that need work. That's going to fix a lot of imbalances. We're then looking at also cardio. Now, at the moment you say cardio, it sends shivers down people's spines because they think of the medium through which to express it or the output. So they'll think of treadmills or exercise bikes or just running on the road, and it'll put them off. But you've got to really drill down on what it stands for. 2 seconds. Which is cardiovascular work. And still, the biggest killer of humans is heart disease and has been for decades. So we need to work not just on the outside of the body and the aesthetics, we need to work under the hood. We need to work on the arteries and the heart and the lungs. And so we need an element of this training modality in. And it's one of the first things, as you age, you lose the ability to even jog backwards quite quickly, and you'll lose that high intensity movement. And so we want to keep those joints lubricated. We want to, where can, keep the body primed and ticking over. And so this element is pretty important. And it's where a lot of the places will start. If I'm working one-on-one with a client, I'll come and do all these anthropometric and joint measurements, looking at the pelvis and whether that's got too much of a forward tilt or not. And we'll be going through the body, correcting these bits. And this will come from the movement section as well. So that's movement. We then go into energy cultivation. The nuts and bolts of this is how are we getting our energy not just from imbibing foods, and how are we upgrading the energetic system of the body through things like sleep, bread and butter. So we all go, yeah, no need to be getting more sleep. but are we actually doing anything about it? Or just we've got some nice little sound bites we throw around at dinner parties or on social media about knowledge about sleep. But is anyone actually doing anything different? The answer is, in most cases, they're not. So we're here about implementing stuff. And for most of the clients, a lot of the time, they sit there and they go, oh, I'm trying to go to bed early, but I can't get to sleep. They're either on the phone or they're too mentally stimulated still. So what tricks are we using to be able to dial down that mental stimulation in bed so we're not tick, 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 ticking over? And therefore we have the ability to sleep and get that quality and quantity in. Now, other than that, we have breath work, we have meditation, we have qigong, we have all these other implements that the East have been using for ages to go in, disrupt, shake up, and get a better output of your energetic body. And so this will probably be, if you haven't sampled it, the most profound element, because this stuff works and it stood the test of time. Some of these practices have been around for millennia. So we're going to be incorporating these, which will work pretty well. The next stage is energy cultivation mindset. The first thing in mindset, the bread and butter, is what is the plan? What is the program? What are you doing? When are you doing it? How are you doing it? And so we flesh those things out. It goes into philosophy, psychology, your purpose as well in life. These are the kind of your North Star of when shit goes wrong or you hit road bumps or things don't go your way. Rather than throwing the toys out of the pram, we have systems in place that we have expected this, we navigate it through, and we can use a lot of the isms for this. Taoism, Buddhism, Stoicism, a couple of these things have been around again for a long time that help us, work our way and navigate through these potholes. Then we have nutrition. Again, this is results driven. We're not dogmatic in this section. I was when I first started, like others. I got influenced by a certain method, implemented it, thought it was the dog's bollocks, but I still think, by the way, it is the right way to go. But when only 3 to 5% of your clientele can actually see it through, it's not a decent protocol. And so again, it doesn't matter whether you're into any of these kind of things that rise up each decade which are in favor, whether you're into Atkins, keto, juicing, carnivore, vegan, it doesn't really matter. It's results driven. You start somewhere and we learn how to apply it. You can either do this holistically, which just means you've got a lot more individual observation and assessment, but it'll still work. Or we can get a bit more mathematical. We can go into calories, and then there's advanced protocols for getting people properly stage lean, which we can adhere to. So macros and all sorts of different protocols we can use or have in our quiver that when you plateau, we shoot it with something else and we get to keep going down and getting results. So that's the main thing. If you're not assessing, you're guessing in that nutrition scenario. So super interesting. I love it. The big thing with that is education. There's so much conflicting intel out there on podcasts and Google and YouTube, etc., that it leaves a sea of confusion for everyone. So it's a lot simpler than most people think when you're looking at the number one study that counts, which is you yourself. What is your eating practices doing at this moment in time with your age, with your training, and how is that affecting your body right now? We're not interested in studies done in the 1970s on nutrition with 12 Japanese school children. It's just irrelevant. So anyway, there's that and the nutrition. And then we've got strength training, which again is going to cross over with some bits from the movement, especially around foundational training, correctives and some joint mobilizations. But the key thing here is we find the weakness and we build out that strength foundation. Off that we'll riff power generation, strength, body aesthetics. But again, it's like that whole analogy, you can't fire a cannon from a canoe. If you've got weak glutes, core, that whole inner unit structure, then it won't be long before injury starts, raising its head, and we can't build anything off a shit foundation. So those are the 5 elements. All of those interrelate with each other. If you have a poor night's sleep, then everything else is kiboshed. Your ability to mentally perform, your ability to stick to a diet, your ability to turn up to the gym and strength train and hit those PR numbers or whatever it is, or do a little bit progressive overload better than that, is all going to be diminished. So each one has the ability to influence all of the others, which is why the holistic route is just balancing those all out for the individual at this moment in time. So that is why the 5-element fitness system was born. That's a little bit about the synopsis of it. That is why that is the flagship advanced holistic course we do. And of course, as mentioned earlier, we have other tiers as well. There's 5 tiers in total with a free section that goes online. But that is in the 5-element fitness structure. That's a quick debrief.